much work do you want to do yourself? If you want to save money, you can do some of the decorating yourself if you have the time. Now, you've got to think about logistics of this on the day. If you're getting married and you're having your ceremony, are you going to be able to go and set up the wedding reception beforehand? Now, you might think about doing it yourself if you're having it on your own property and you've got days beforehand. You might have a marquee wedding, say, or you have got a big shed at home that you're going to decorate and make it look beautiful. But if you're having it at a wedding venue,
then you're restricted. You're working on a timeline. So venues do work back to back. So they may have 3 events in a row on all different days. So you can't set it up early. So then you need to work out, okay, well, who's actually going to be able to set it up? And are they going to be able to set it up exactly how I want? Especially if it's family or friends. They may not put it in a position that you want it to be in.
That's right.
At the moment, I'm a maid of honor for a wedding and I'm organising her wedding. And the couple have decided to make this custom-made plinth that's going to be like for a welcome sign. However, her brother is making it and we need to figure out how we're actually going to get it there and how we're actually going to put it in place. Yeah. So just something as simple as that is, and it does take a lot of coordinating and effort. And again, is he going to put it where we want? We hope so. We're going to have a plan in place, but if you don't have those, connections, it becomes really hard.
Yeah, if that person's not experienced and doesn't have the eye for detail and do decorating as for a job, then it could become an issue, couldn't it? Great to save money if you want to do it yourself, and highly recommend that if you're on tight budgets. Maybe there's certain elements you might not do all the decorating yourself. You might make some decorations yourself if you're creative and can make floral arrangements.
And sometimes, I guess, if it's simple, the venues are very accommodating. If it is just to put out a few candles and maybe a centerpiece, they're happy to help. Napkins, they're happy to help. Place cards, they do that anyway. So there is some things they're happy to do, but there is, obviously, if we're talking, like I said, like a custom plinth that's really heavy, they're probably not going to do that.
And that's something you need to check with your venue. You don't want them to expect them to do all your decorating because in most cases they won't.
Or they might charge you. So then it might actually not be, doing it yourself might not actually be that cheap.
Yeah, so you might as well have hired somebody in the beginning. Another thing to consider when potentially doing it yourself is who's going to do the pack down, because if you're having it in a venue, that venue will probably usually in most cases require you to pack it down that night, or if not the first thing in the morning. Now, are you going to be happy to do that?
Or are you going to be happy to send a family member who's just been at your wedding partying all night to then go pack it down the following day?
That's right. I did a wedding not long ago and the couple had planned to pack it up themselves the next day. It was a bit of a DIY, and the last minute they then had to rope in all these extra people because they realised that 1, it was going to be a lot of work, 2, they were hungover from the wedding the night before, and the last thing they really wanted to do. But in the beginning, they'd planned to save a bit of money, but it ended up having...
Because it all sounds good in the beginning.
Yeah, it does.
And then when you get closer to it and it's the night of and you're like, I'm not coming back tomorrow.
That's
it's my
right.
wedding night.
Yeah, and so then you're getting your guests again to do some work at your wedding, which you want to try and avoid. The other thing to think about, and this is something that a lot of people aren't aware of, is if you've hired a venue and you're doing it yourself, there may be special inductions or safety things that you need to do to actually go and decorate your own wedding. So I know we work at venues where we go in and do decorating, and we have to do special statements to say from a safety perspective what we're going to be doing, heights and weights, and are things going to be safe. So that's something else that could take a lot of your time. And if you haven't done that sort of thing before, it could become stressful because you don't know what information they're going to require. And there's a lot of backwards and forwards between the venues as well and yourself. Although you may be saving money, you've also got to value your time in that regard, because that can take a lot of time backwards and forwards, doesn't it? And as decorators, if we know we've got to do that, we usually incorporate that in our costs because it does take time and there is a fair bit involved. But then we do that sort of stuff all the time, so we know what information they need. The other thing you have to ask, and probably the final thing for if you're going to do it yourself, is do you have the skills to actually do it? So some people go, yep, I want to decorate my wedding, but don't actually have the skills to understand colours and what works well with what.
Functionality is something that not everyone is across, and people just think anything can go anywhere. So when you are planning out your wedding and you've got the floor plan, you obviously need to think about, well, can this go there? How am I going to get it from here to there? Whereas that's what we think about.
How many times do you get clients, they'll say, I want some roof draping for my wedding, and the roof is totally unsuitable to do any sort of draping. There's no attachment points. Just a flat roof, you'd have to basically drill into the ceiling, which venues are not going to let you do. And the only other way around it is to then bring in massive amounts of rigging, which then can affect the size of the venue. A lot more cost.
Another thing with this, what we just spoke about, is if you have the skills, it's also, do you have the time?
Yes.
Because it takes so much time, especially if you're trying to create a look and you're trying to source out from all different places. You're either trying to buy it or hire it in just for the day, but you have to go pick it up. Do you have the time to sit down and actually work it out? It takes so many hours to plan a wedding.
So this is just a lot more work.
It is. It's a lot more work and it's a lot more stress.
There's some of the key things you need to consider. Can save you money, but it's usually going to take a lot more of your time.